I was sitting in my favorite armchair, the green velvet one I'd bought 15 years ago with my first pension check after my husband died. The evening news was playing softly, my coffee was still warm on the side table, the house smelled like the apple pie I'd just pulled from the oven. Then the front door slammed open like a crack of thunder. My son-in-law, Derek, stormed into the living room, grabbed the remote from the coffee table, and switched off my television. Just like that. Click. Silence. "Get lost, old woman," he said, not even looking at me. "This living room is mine now. I've got the game on." I looked at my daughter, Sarah, standing in the doorway behind him, shopping bags hanging from her trembling hands. I waited for her to say something. Anything, to tell him he couldn't speak to her mother that way, to remind him this was my house. She looked down at the floor and said nothing. That silence cut deeper than any words ever could. I stood up slowly, my knees cracking in the quiet. I didn't say a word. I walked to my bedroom, opened the bottom drawer of my dresser, and pulled out a leather folder I hadn't touched in years. Inside were documents. Important documents, the deed to this house with my name on it. Celeste Morgan Everson, sole owner. I took my keys, walked past Derek sprawled on my couch with his feet up, past my daughter pretending to be busy in the kitchen, and I left my own house without saying a single word. The next morning, a man in a sharp suit appeared at my front door with papers that would change everything. But let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Aisha, and I'm 68 years old. I spent 35 years working at the county recorder's office, handling property deeds, titles, and legal documents. My husband, James, was a banker. We built a good life together, bought this house in 1982, raised our daughter Sarah here. When James passed away 15 years ago, I kept working. I kept paying the mortgage until the house was mine, free and clear. I kept the utilities on, kept the garden growing, kept everything running smoothly. This wasn't just a house. It was my home, my sanctuary, the place where I'd built my memories. 4 years ago, Sarah came to me with Derek. They'd been dating for 6 months. She was 36 and glowing with happiness. "Mom," she said, "Derek lost his apartment. The rent went up, and he can't afford it right now. Can we stay here, just temporarily? 6 months, maybe a year, until we get back on our feet?" I looked at my daughter's hopeful face. What mother says no to that? "Of course you can stay," I told them, "as long as you need." I thought it would be temporary. I thought wrong. Derek moved in with 3 suitcases and an attitude. Within weeks, he'd taken over the master bedroom, saying his back needed a better mattress. He spread his things across the living room, the garage, the basement. His cologne lingered in every hallway. His voice filled every corner. And slowly, quietly, I started shrinking myself to fit around him. I stopped watching television in the evenings because Derek wanted the living room for his sports games. I started wearing headphones when I wanted to watch my shows so I wouldn't disturb his conference calls. I ate dinner in the kitchen while they ate in the dining room. I bought groceries with my pension money and cooked meals that Derek would criticize if the meat was too tough or the vegetables weren't seasoned right. I paid the mortgage. I paid the utilities. I paid the property taxes. I paid for the internet upgrade Derek demanded when his old connection was too slow. I paid for the premium cable package so he could watch all his sports channels. And I told myself, this was temporary, that they were saving money, that soon they'd move out and I'd have my house back. But 4 years passed and they never saved a dime. Every penny I poured into that house, they spent on other things. New cars, designer clothes, weekend trips, restaurant meals, everything except moving out. And through it all, my daughter watched me disappear into the corners of my own home and said nothing. Last night wasn't the first time Derek had been rude to me. It wasn't even the worst thing he'd said. But something about the way he stood there, blocking my television, ordering me out of my own living room, something about it snapped the last thread of tolerance I'd been holding on to. "Get lost, old woman. This living room is mine now." The words hung in the air like poison gas. I looked at Sarah. Our eyes met for just a second. In that moment, I was begging her silently, "Please, sweetheart, please stand up for me. Please remember that I'm your mother. Please remember whose house this is." She adjusted her shopping bags and looked away. That's when I knew. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't going to change. Derek didn't see me as a person. He saw me as furniture, a convenient, free living arrangement, an old woman who'd do what she was told and stay out of his way. And my daughter? My daughter had chosen him over me. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I didn't defend myself. I simply stood up from my green velvet chair, walked calmly to my bedroom, and opened that bottom drawer. The leather folder was right where I'd left it. Inside, the documents were crisp and clear. Property deed, utility bills in my name, bank statements showing every payment I'd made for 4 solid years. I'd kept records of everything, old habits from the county recorder's office. I also pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in years. Andrew Sterling, attorney at law. We'd worked together back when I was processing property disputes. He was sharp, fair, and didn't waste time on nonsense. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and walked out of my house. Derek was already stretched out on my couch, his shoes on my cushions, a beer in his hand, screaming at the television about some referee's bad call. He didn't even look at me as I passed. "Taking a walk, Aisha?" he called out, smirking. "Don't get lost at your age." I didn't answer. I just closed the door behind me, locked the front gate, and walked to the main street where I hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. "The Grand Hyatt, downtown," I said. I checked into a hotel room that night, a clean, quiet room with a big bed, soft pillows, and a television that I could watch at whatever volume I wanted. I ordered room service, a bowl of soup, and a glass of wine, and I ate slowly, peacefully, for the first time in years. Then I picked up my phone and called Andrew Sterling. "Aisha?" His voice was surprised. "It's 9:30 at night. What's wrong?" "I need your help," I said calmly. "I need to evict 2 people from my property." There was a pause. "You mean your daughter and son-in-law?" "Yes." Another pause. "What happened?" "He told me to get lost from my own living room," I said. "My daughter said nothing. I'm not going back until they're gone." "I understand," Andrew said, and I could hear him already thinking, already planning. "That's harassment at minimum, but you don't need pity, Aisha. You need the law." "Exactly." "The house is in your name only?" "Yes. They've lived there 4 years with no lease, no rental agreement, nothing in writing, just my generosity." "Then we can issue a notice to vacate," Andrew said. 30 days is standard. I'll have my associate, Roman Cruz, deliver it first thing tomorrow morning. He's professional, sharp, and he doesn't take any nonsense." "Perfect," I said. "Aisha," Andrew's voice softened, "are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I replied. I hung up and slept better than I had in 4 years. The next morning, I woke up early, showered, and put on the same clothes from yesterday. But I stood differently. My shoulders were back. My head was high. I wasn't the woman who'd left that house in shame yesterday. I was the woman who owned it. I went to Andrew's office at 8 in the morning. The papers were ready. Notice of termination of gratuitous use of property. It was all legal language, but the message was simple. You have 30 days to get out of my house. I signed every page with a steady hand. My signature looked strong, final. "Andrew is heading out now," Andrew told me, nodding toward a tall young man in a crisp suit carrying a leather briefcase. 20 minutes and he'll be at your door." "Good," I said. "I'll wait here." I sat in the reception area with a cup of coffee from the machine and watched the clock. Somewhere across town, Roman Cruz was walking up to my front door. Somewhere in my house, Derek was probably still asleep, and Sarah was probably making his coffee, and neither of them had any idea what was about to hit them. At 9:30, my phone buzzed. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Mom, oh my God!" Her voice was frantic, almost screaming. "There's a man here with papers. Derek is losing his mind. What is this? Where are you?" I could hear Derek yelling in the background, loud, angry, incoherent shouting. "That's Roman," I said calmly. "He's a lawyer's associate. Tell Derek to lower his voice and read the document. It's an eviction notice. You have 30 days to move out." "Eviction? Mom, have you lost your mind? This is our home." "No, Sarah," I corrected her. "It's my home. You've been guests. Now you're leaving." "But Derek needs the internet for work, his calls, his clients, everything." "Then he should get his own internet," I said. "I've already called the provider and suspended the service. The cable is off too. And the credit card I gave you for groceries, that's canceled as of this morning." "You can't do this," she cried. "I already did," I said, and I hung up. I sat there in that quiet office, sipping my coffee, feeling calmer than I'd felt in years. The phone kept buzzing, text messages from Sarah, angry calls from Derek. I ignored them all. Andrew came out of his office and looked at me. "How are you holding up?" "I'm not holding up," I said. "I'm standing up. There's a difference." He smiled. "You need anything else?" "Yes," I said. "I want to go shopping." I walked 2 blocks to the Gallery Mall. Inside, the lighting was bright, the displays were elegant, and I felt like I was waking up from a long sleep. In a boutique, I found a sales associate named Jenna. "I need a uniform," I told her. "Something that says, 'I'm done being pushed around.'" She smiled and brought me dark blue trousers, a crisp white blouse, and a beige linen blazer. When I tried them on, I looked like myself again, professional, confident, in control. "I'll take it all," I said, "and I'm wearing it out." I folded my old clothes and asked Jenna to donate them to charity. "Let them help someone else," I said. I walked out of that store feeling like a different woman. My heels clicked on the tile floor with authority. My spine was straight. My head was clear. I sat on a bench and pulled out my phone. Time for the next step. First call, the internet and cable company. "I'd like to suspend all services at my address effective immediately," I said. Reason, property renovations. "Services will be disconnected within 2 hours," the operator confirmed. Second call, the bank. "I need to block the supplementary credit card in my daughter's name," I said. "Security reasons." "Done," the representative said. "The card is now inactive." I sat there on that bench, feeling the weight of 4 years lifting off my shoulders. No more paying for Derek's sports packages. No more covering Sarah's grocery bills while they spent their money on luxury items. No more being taken advantage of in my own home. I went to a quiet restaurant on the 2nd floor and ordered mushroom risotto and a glass of white wine. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I ignored them. Then came a text from the bank. "Transaction declined, $85. Butcher shop, premium ribeye." I smiled. Derek loved his expensive steaks. Not anymore. Another text from Derek's number. "The cards aren't working. Call the bank. We're at the register." I typed back calmly, "It's not a malfunction. It's a freeze. The credit and the free ride both ended yesterday when you told me to get lost." I finished my meal, paid with my own card, and went back to the Grand Hyatt. In my hotel room, I kicked off my shoes and lay down on the bed. The television was on my favorite channel. The volume was exactly how I liked it. Nobody was yelling at me. Nobody was telling me to move.
Aisha's story matters now for every global viewer. It shows that legal systems can be leveraged against the ultra-rich. It proves that collective truth can defeat individual power. The short-term consequence was financial and legal justice. The court found in favor of the 4 women. Julian Thorne was ordered to pay a massive settlement, reportedly one of the largest non-injury-related payouts in recent history. His reputation was utterly destroyed. His image as a benevolent billionaire was shattered forever. Her long-term consequence is the Thorne Clause. According to sources, the landmark ruling led to the unofficial creation of the Thorne Clause. This is a legal term that refers to prenuptial agreements designed to silence or harm vulnerable parties. Legal experts now use this case to challenge abusive prenuptial agreements in the US and UK. For the target viewer in the US and UK, this is a lesson in thin-scene financial control. We must question the silence around powerful figures. We must understand that marriage, immigration, and financial laws can be weaponized. A simple prediction is that Aisha will become a strong advocate. She will use the settlement money to create a foundation. This foundation will help women from developing countries who are trapped in abusive international marriages. She will break the cycle of fear. I'll explain why in a moment that Julian's actions were not just about greed. They were about dominance and a God complex. He enjoyed the feeling of saving someone only to destroy them later. His wealth was not enough. He needed total emotional and legal mastery over others.
For the first time in 4 years, I felt at home. I slept for an hour, a deep, peaceful sleep. When I woke up, the hotel phone was ringing. "Your daughter's in the lobby," the receptionist said. "She's asking to see you. She says it's urgent." I looked at myself in the mirror. The beige blazer, the white blouse, the straight posture. I looked like a woman who knew her worth. "Tell her I'll be right down," I said. The elevator doors opened onto the hotel lobby. Sarah was pacing back and forth between the couches, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me in my new blazer, she stopped dead in her tracks. "Mom," she said, and her voice cracked. I walked toward her slowly, my heels clicking on the marble floor. "Sit down," I said, pointing to an armchair. "We're in a respectable place. We'll talk calmly." She sank into the chair, wringing her hands. "Mom, please, let's just go home. Let's talk this through like family." "We are talking like family," I said. "I'm setting boundaries. You've lived in my house for 4 years without paying rent. I've covered your utilities, your internet, your groceries. Derek has disrespected me repeatedly, and you've said nothing. So I'm giving you 30 days to find a new place." "But he needs the internet for work," Sarah protested. "You're ruining his reputation." "Then he can work from a coffee shop," I said calmly, "or he can pay for his own internet. The services I was paying for are gone. I'm not a charity." "You're humiliating us," she whispered. "Everyone saw the card decline at the store today." "Humiliation," I repeated, "is being told to get lost in your own living room. Humiliation is eating dinner alone in the kitchen while guests take over your dining room. Humiliation is shrinking yourself in your own home for 4 years. Today, nobody's being humiliated. Today, everyone's paying their own way." Sarah's face crumpled. "If we leave, Derek says he's going to divorce me. He says if he doesn't have your house, he doesn't want to be with me." Those words hung in the air between us. I leaned forward and covered her trembling hands with mine. "Sarah," I said softly, "if your marriage is held together by my square footage and my bank account, that's not a marriage. That's a hostage situation. And you're the hostage." She jerked her hands away like I'd burned her. "You've become cruel, old and cruel." "No," I said. "I've become sane. At 68 years old, I finally remembered that I matter, that my home is my home, that my money is my money, and that no matter how much I love you, I don't have to set myself on fire to keep you warm." We sat in silence. Around us, the hotel hummed with quiet activity, people checking in, checking out, living their lives without drama. "Just turn the internet back on," Sarah tried one more time. "Please, Derek won't cope. Neither will I." "No," I said firmly, "but I'll tell you what I will do. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you and Derek will come to Andrew Sterling's office. We're going to have a meeting. We're going to discuss the eviction, the timeline, and what happens next. You're going to bring proof of your savings over the last 4 years, because if Derek's been working this whole time, you should have at least $100,000 saved up from not paying rent or utilities." Sarah's face went pale. We don't have savings." "Where did the money go?" I asked quietly. She looked down. "Derek said it was tied up in investments, business things. He'd show me the details later." "Then he'll show all of us tomorrow." 10 o'clock, don't be late. Sarah stood up, her eyes filled with tears and anger. You're really doing this? You're really choosing to destroy your own family? No, sweetheart, I said, standing to face her. I'm choosing to save myself. There's a difference. She turned and walked toward the exit, her shoulders shaking. I watched her go and felt a pang in my heart, but it was a small pang, manageable, nothing compared to the 4 years of pain I'd swallowed in silence. I went back to my room, ordered dinner, and watched television until midnight. My show, my volume, my peace. The next morning, I arrived at Andrew Sterling's office at 9:30. I wore my beige blazer again, my armor of calm and confidence. Andrew had prepared a conference room with all the documents laid out neatly. You ready for this? He asked. I've been ready for 4 years, I replied. At 10 o'clock sharp, the door opened. Derek walked in first, looking rumpled and angry. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose, dark circles under his eyes from a sleepless night without his precious internet. Sarah followed behind him, clutching her purse like a life preserver. Sit down, Andrew said in his courtroom voice. Derek dropped into a chair and glared at me. This is ridiculous. We've lived there for 4 years. We have rights. Rights are exactly why we're here, I said calmly. The house is my sole property. You've been living there at my goodwill. I've terminated that goodwill. You have 30 days to vacate. There's something called adverse possession, Derek shot back, his words tumbling over each other. We've been living there openly like owners. You can't just kick us out. I smiled slightly. I worked in property law for 35 years, Derek. Adverse possession requires the owner to be absent, to not pay the bills, and to not object. I've been living there the whole time. I've paid every single bill, and I'm objecting now. You're not owners. You're temporary guests who overstayed their welcome. Andrew slid a document across the table. The eviction notice is legal and properly served. When the 30 days expire, we'll file a lawsuit for formal eviction and recovery of back rent. Back rent? Sarah gasped. You never charged us rent. No, I agreed, but fair market value for a 3-bedroom house in this neighborhood is about $2,000 a month. That's $96,000 over 4 years. Add in the utilities, internet, cable, and groceries I covered, and we're looking at around $120,000. The room went silent. Derek's face had gone from red to pale. You can't be serious, he finally said. I'm completely serious, I replied. Andrew, show them the itemized bill. Andrew slid another document across the table, line by line, month by month, every expense I'd covered for 4 years. The numbers didn't lie. Sarah stared at the paper, her hands shaking. We can't pay this. Then you should have thought about that before Derek told me to get lost in my own living room, I said. Before you stood there and said nothing while he disrespected me. Before you spent 4 years taking advantage of my kindness. Derek stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. This is extortion. We're family. Family respects each other, I said, my voice rising for the first time. Family doesn't order their mother-in-law out of her own living room. Family doesn't sponge off an elderly woman for 4 years. Family doesn't spend money on luxury cars and vacations while someone else pays their bills. You want to talk about family, Derek? You wouldn't know family if it sat down and had dinner with you every night for 4 years. He opened his mouth to respond, but Andrew cut him off. Mr. Morrison, I suggest you consult your own attorney. The notice stands. 30 days. If you're not out by then, we proceed with formal eviction proceedings and collection efforts for the back rent. Derek grabbed Sarah's arm. We're leaving. This is insane. But Sarah pulled away from him. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Mom, is this really what you want? For us to lose everything? What I want, I said quietly, is to live in my own house without being told to get lost. What I want is to watch television in my own living room. What I want is to feel like a human being instead of a piece of furniture. If that means you have to leave, then yes, that's what I want. We're done here, Derek said, pulling Sarah toward the door. But before they left, I said one more thing. Sarah, when you find an apartment, call me. I'll help you move. I'll help you get set up. But Derek doesn't come with you. Not to my house, not ever again. She looked back at me, confusion and hurt on her face. Then they were gone, the door closing behind them with a soft click. I sat in that conference room for a long moment, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. Andrew put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," he said. "I know," I replied, "but it still hurts." "It always does," he said. "But pain that comes from protecting yourself is better than pain that comes from destroying yourself." 28 days later, I stood on the sidewalk in front of my house and watched a moving truck pull away. Sarah and Derek had left with 2 days to spare. They'd taken their things, cleaned the rooms, and left without a final confrontation. Sarah had called me 3 times during those 4 weeks. Short conversations, awkward, but she'd called. That was something. Derek had sent one text message, "You'll regret this." I deleted it without responding. Now I stood at my own front gate with my keys in my hand. The house looked the same from the outside, but I knew everything inside had changed. The air would smell different. The silence would sound different. The space would feel different. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The living room was empty except for my green velvet chair, right where I'd left it almost a month ago. I walked over, sat down, and picked up the remote control. I turned on the television. The news was playing. I adjusted the volume to exactly how I liked it. In the kitchen, I made myself a cup of coffee. I sat at my own table in my own dining room and looked around the space that was finally, completely mine again. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "We found an apartment. It's small, but it's ours. Derek's staying with his brother for now. I think we might be done." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I typed back, "I'm sorry you're hurting, but I'm proud of you for making a choice. Come by for dinner on Sunday. Just you." 3 dots appeared. Then, "I'll be there." I smiled and set the phone down. That evening, I baked another apple pie. The smell filled the house, warm and sweet and comforting. I ate a slice at my own pace in my own living room, watching my own television show. Nobody told me to get lost. Nobody made me feel small. Nobody took advantage of my kindness. I was 68 years old, and I'd finally learned the most important lesson of my life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop letting them destroy you. Sometimes family means setting boundaries. Sometimes kindness means saying no. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply stand up, take your keys, and walk out the door until they understand that respect isn't optional. It took 30 days and a man in a sharp suit with legal papers to teach them that lesson. But they learned it, and I got my home back. Not just my house, my home, the place where I could finally, peacefully, wonderfully be myself again. If you're sitting in your own home right now, being treated like you don't matter by people who should love you, let me tell you something important. You deserve better. Your home is your sanctuary. Your space is your right. Your peace is not negotiable. It doesn't matter if they're family. It doesn't matter if you feel guilty. It doesn't matter if they cry or yell or threaten. What matters is that you matter. Stand up, take your keys, and don't come back until they understand that. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing, until the man in the suit shows up with the papers that change everything. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find the courage to reclaim their own home, their own peace, and their own power. Remember, you're never too old to stand up for yourself, and it's never too late to say enough is enough.